Right now on episode 24 of the Fantasy Flyer, we are going to go over the Thanksgiving Day games. We're going to preview the Week 12 slate, give you 5 fantasy flyers that you can trust this weekend. We're also going to catch you up on host v host, and then we're also going to go over our leftover special, talking about some trade targets and some trades we saw on social media. Me and Taylor will give you our thoughts on them. That's all coming up on the episode of the Fantasy Flyer, episode 24, happening right now. Welcome to episode 24. My name is Derek. This is the Fantasy Flyer. I'm in the Fantasy Lab. As always, my co-host, the esteemed Taylor Plimpton. Good sir. How are you?
Not too shabby. Esteemed. I like it. Kind of feel like I need a monocle, especially after you said good sir.
Yeah, I have to be super fancy.
Yeah.
We are through the Thanksgiving. How was your Thanksgiving? Was it good? We're through the
It was,
Thanksgiving.
yes, amazing. Delicious, lots of great food, ate too much as usual, which is part of the tradition.
Right, 100%. I did the same thing. Well, I had 2 different family dinners, so
Oh,
one on
the
Sunday.
double
So
Thanksgiving meal. Okay.
yeah, it would have almost been a triple. I've done triple before, but
Oh boy.
yeah, it's but no, yeah. There's actually my roommate and my girlfriend just got back with more food from the second dinner, and it's sitting on
Nice.
the counter, and I'm staring at it right now. But no, a good Thanksgiving. I was able to watch a good chunk of the games. Second half of the Buffalo and Detroit game, all of the Cowboys game because that's my thing,
Hmm.
and I think 3/4 or so of the Minnesota game. So I was able to kind of get a gist of all of them. They were all very well scoring, and we are going to start off by reviewing them. So
Yeah.
did you watch them?
I caught most of Bills Lions, did not catch any of Giants Cowboys, and then Patriots and Vikings I was able to watch live and then some recorded.
Okay. All right. So you had a little bit of the, especially that was an interesting game. I actually really enjoyed the. We'll talk about it
Yeah.
obviously with the, but we'll start off with the early game. Just to review, Buffalo narrowly holds on for this one. 28-25 over the Lions. Detroit was in this. Another well played run game, and then there was some smart passing. Khalif Raymond did very good. Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, is
Hmm.
don't need to say anything about Amon-Ra. DeAndre Swift is still the RB2 on this team, and I don't know why. Uh, Jamal Williams ran for his usual 60 yards and had a touchdown. It was wonderful, I guess. I don't know. Buffalo still doesn't look quite as sharp as they were weeks 1 through 7. Diggs dropped like, I don't know what, 4 or 5 catches. He was defended well at times too, was not good. He had 77 yards, and I want to say like 55 of them came in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, there
And
was a
like
lot in the
half of
fourth.
them, yeah, and like half of them on one play
Yeah.
that turned into the game-winning field goal. So
Right.
um, Goff took care of the ball, led some successful drives. If there's one thing that the Lions can do, it's make the offense kind of chugga down the field. So um, Von Miller left this game with what look, I guess it's a torn.
Lateral
I, I
meniscus.
thought it was the meniscus. He avoided the ACL. Length of injury unknown. That one hurts. um, Isaiah McKenzie had a big game for the Bills. If it's not working with Diggs, you got to find somebody else. I would have expected more Davis in this, but
Hmm.
Isaiah McKenzie for the win. Allen, 24 for 42, 253 yards, pair of touchdowns, and an interception. He also had a rushing touchdown on 78 yards on the ground. Singletary with 72 yards on 14 carries. Isaiah McKenzie, 10 targets, 6 catches, 96 yards, and a touchdown. Stephon Diggs, 15 targets, caught 8 of them, 77 yards, and did have a touchdown. That was the beginning of him salvaging his fantasy day before a couple more catches came, including like the 30-some yarder that put them in field goal range. For Detroit, Goff, 2 touchdowns on 240 yards, was 23 for 37. Serviceable, fine. Williams, 66 yards and a touchdown on 18 carries. Amon-Ra, 9 catches, 10 targets, 122 yards and a touchdown. DeAndre Swift, the only thing that that's all I gotta say.
He almost had a touchdown. I think he was short. And yeah, so obviously it didn't count, but that initially they counted as a touchdown.
He almost had a touchdown. DeAndre Swift fantasy managers like
they ask how you are, you just have to say that you're fine.
Yeah.
You're not really fine.
They're really not.
No.
5 carries for 19 yards, 4 catches on 8 targets, 24 yards. 8 targets is promising.
Yeah.
He's like right now he's a less effective Austin Eckler. He's like diet Austin Eckler. Except Austin Eckler's also scoring like consistently.
Yeah.
So, good game for the Bills. I mean, they needed the win. It didn't look like the team was going to win, and then they did. And also, I won money off this game. Thank you, FanDuel.
Nice.
Next game, Giants Cowboys. Giants lose this one 20-28. Cowboys with 28 points, 21 of them in the second half. Giants were good on defense.
Yeah.
But only against really the pass. Like the rush from Dallas was perfectly fine the whole first half, and they just didn't go to it. Zeke, by the way, I said that, not Pollard. Zeke was the effective running back in this game and looked much more like 2019, 2018 Zeke that we want to see.
Right.
And they didn't go to him as much. He had a touchdown and 50 yards after like the first half of the first quarter, and he only ended with like 92 yards because they stopped going to the rush entirely, and they tried to get Pollard going. Points to them. I don't think Pollard had 30-some yards, 40-some yards on the ground.
He had 60 on the ground.
Oh, did he? He had 60?
Yeah.
Okay. That's better than I thought. So not bad. It's still close to his average. But it was good to see Zeke go out and find gaps, find holes, especially because I overpaid for a lot of him. He's averaging 16.4 fantasy points per game over his last 4 games. So serviceable RB. Well, yeah, that'll do it. And this one, he didn't even need he only had 1 touchdown, and he had 18 in our league, probably 16 in others, 16 and a half, 17. Giants are have to get creative on offense. Obviously, they're losing so many weapons.
Yeah.
I mean, they will hopefully have Bellinger back in the next 2 weeks. Need him. Richie James played a big part of the offense in this one. 5 catches on 6 targets, 41 yards, had a touchdown, which was garbage time touchdown, but it counts. Saquon Barkley, boo.
Yeah.
39 yards. I missed my second of I won a bet, which had nothing to do with this. I was 1 yard shy of the bet that had Barkley in it because I had him at 40 yards and above. That would have been for $169. So that makes me sad.
Yeah.
Such is gambling. But not effective on the ground. Just Dallas has last couple of weeks been letting the run game go. Didn't this one. Darius Slayton, 3 catches, 6 targets, 63 yards. Daniel Jones, 21 for 35, 228 yards and a touchdown. Only had 12 yards rushing, I believe. Was not as mobile. For Dallas, Dak, 21 for 30, which is very misleading because he had 1 bad interception and another one that was just underthrown a little bit, and it was bobbled, and yeah. But he had 2 interceptions total, 2 touchdowns, 261 yards. Zeke, 16 carries, 92 yards, and a touchdown. If you're good at math, that's roughly 5.8 per carry. CeeDee Lamb, 6 catches on 11 targets, 106 yards, had a touchdown taken from him because the back of his heel hit out of bounds by about that much. It touches white, you're out. Dalton Schultz, 2 touchdowns, 4 for 4 on his targets, 31 yards. Good. We knew his value goes up when Dak came back. So
yeah.
Giants slip to 7-4. Cowboys go to 8-3. Take sole place as second in the NFC East, and are trying to track down a very tough Eagles team. So, last game, Patriots Vikings. I did not see this shootout coming.
Yeah, really.
I played the defensive side. I played under on the 42-point over under. That was blown apart by about 10 minutes to go in the third. They had touchdowns for everybody. Literally all over. It was honestly, it was a great game to wrap up Thanksgiving. The QBs excelled. Wide receivers seemed to have fun. The defenses couldn't do anything, which if you're gonna have, and why not? Too much turkey, I guess. I don't know. There's only 4 sacks between the two teams, and none of them went to a man named Matthew Judon.
No.
So, I don't understand why that was a problem.
I mean,
Too much
they definitely
Taco Bell.
got a little pressure on Cousins, chasing him down, making him a couple of bad throws, one of which turned into the interception, but definitely not nearly as much as I was hoping, Patriots were hoping, Patriots fans were hoping, because as we've seen and as we did see with that interception, Kirk Cousins struggles when he gets pressure on him. That's what we said.
Most folks, most quarterbacks.
Yeah.
Jared Goff leads the league for that, in my opinion. But I was watching that with the Lions game with somebody in my family or my girlfriend's side of the family who is a Lions fan. And every single time I'd watch the front seven from Buffalo attack him. And as soon as somebody got even close to getting around, I'm like, that's not a complete catch.
Yeah.
That can't be completed. He can't, and there's nothing in it. Every single time. I think I batted 100 or batted 1,000. I was literally like 7 for 7. I'm like, not complete. Touchdowns for Thielen, Jefferson, Hawkinson. I finished that name. Hunter Henry had 2 touchdowns. One by the scoreboard, 2 by a lot of people in our league. I saw the ball hit the ground. It was stingy. I said it last night. I don't hate them for calling it, but like, I get where it's not really conclusive. I'm not going to go
right.
bad
I felt like it
anybody
could have
for
been.
disagreeing.
Yeah, I felt like the turnover, there wasn't enough there. Yeah, you kind of see it touch the ground, but also like, I don't know, if you had a different angle, you might see that his hand was under the ball. He's kind of like rolling, and it's like, yeah, maybe this much of the ball touches the ground, but his hand is there, and I don't know.
Yeah,
they've
called other ones touchdowns.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cousins 30 for 37, 299 yards, 3 touchdowns and an interception. Jefferson 11 targets, 9 catches, 139 yards and a touchdown. Hawkinson 6 targets, 5 catches, 43 yards and a touchdown. Adam Thielen 10 targets, 9 catches, 61 yards and a touchdown. Good fantasy day for Thielen.
Finally.
Like it. Yeah. Well, he's had 4, 5, 6 catches, but he hasn't hit the end zone much this year. He hasn't been like, about time.
Yeah.
For New England, Mac Jones 28 for 39, 382 yards, as I put in here, 2 touchdowns. Ramondre Stevenson only had 36 yards on the ground, had 76 in the air on 9 catches. Still one of the best 2-tier backs. His workload, I thought, would be higher once Damian Harris got ruled out with his injury in the third. Devontae Parker 4 for 4, 80 yards. Nelson Aguilar 6 catches, 8 targets, 65 yards, 1 touchdown. As with the other 2 games, the very last play of the game was like a 20-some yarder to Jacoby Myers. That, as the clock expired, I won a bet on that catch. Yeah, it's garbage time money.
Yeah, take it.
Anything from any of these three games that I feel like we kind of. I mean, we all got the host v host side. We all picked teams right. No perfect scores, so each of us get 9 points. But this was kind of the way we expected it by result. I think the Bills Lions was closer than we expected it, and I think the Patriots Vikings was a higher, more bombastic game than we expected it. But other than that, it was good football, and that was about it.
Yeah, Bills Lions. Honestly, I don't know if I totally agree with this statement, but Lions kind of deserved to win that. They missed a field goal or 2. And could have been in a much better spot, but I mean, you got to hand it to the Bills coming down at the end of the game there in the 2-minute drill and getting in field goal range super fast. Bills definitely, Bills definitely the better team, but Lions put up a good fight. I didn't see much of the Giants Cowboys, but I did see that the Giants had the lead early on until like the third, right? So
Then they didn't score until garbage time.
yeah, so Giants defense is definitely what keeps them in these games, and they desperately need weapons and people to be efficient.
And side note to all of the Giants fans whining about Thibodeau not getting called for the holding penalty, or not getting called being like the cause of a holding penalty or whatever it is. Shut up, Micah Parsons. That's all I gotta say. Happens 5 times a game. Stop your crap. Also, wouldn't have made your team better. Just want to let you know that. Still wouldn't have scored. So
Yeah, I mean, and then my Pats game, there was a lot of interesting calls as with any football game, but there was like some calls that I didn't agree with, some calls that didn't get made. It was on both sides of the ball, but some of them kind of felt like they swung things a little bit. I won't say the Vikings didn't deserve to win this game, but the Pats, this was a great offensive game by them that I mean, I love to see this, and hopefully they can continue to do something like this moving forward. Vikings usually they've been a decent defense, but the past couple of weeks have been chewed up. So I don't know what's happening there. But yeah, I mean, almost 400 yards for Mac Jones. They were moving the ball fine. They really struggled to capitalize in the red zone.
Couldn't have said it better myself. We're gonna go into the 9 segment. The guru of the 9, Taylor. I'll let you take it away for a somewhat lightning round of the 9 because it's a mile long.
There's a lot here, but I'll try to keep it quick. Starting with Arizona, Marquise Hollywood Brown, and actually just a reminder, no bye weeks, no byes this week. So good there. Marquise Hollywood Brown, foot. He was on IR, is in the window to come off of IR. There's that like 21 day window where they can evaluate a player during practice and decide if they want to take him off IR. And it is expected that he will come off of IR and play on Sunday against the Chargers, but probably in a limited role. Although saying that, Rondale Moore is out and Greg Dortch, who would be the benefactor of Moore, is questionable. So they may have to have Marquise Hollywood Brown play a little more. Dortch he didn't practice Wednesday through Friday, so he's a game time decision. Atlanta, not super important, but Caleb Huntley is questionable. Baltimore, Isaiah Likely, also not that important since Mark Andrews is healthy. Isaiah Likely is questionable. This appears to have happened during Friday's practice, so he probably won't play. Gus Edwards, hamstring and knee. He is questionable, was a full participant in both Thursday and Friday's practice, so that's trending in the right direction. Devin Duvernay, hamstring, questionable, limited participant in Friday's practice. Demarcus Robinson, hip, questionable, sat out Thursday, was a full participant Friday, so that's trending in the right direction. We touched on this, just a notable injury from the Buffalo game. Von Miller knee suffered a lateral meniscus tear on Thanksgiving. We'll have it re-examined after 7 to 10 days to see what they want to do moving forward. Carolina, Terrace Marshall Jr.'s shoulder injury. He is questionable, was a full participant in Friday's practice, so that's trending in the right direction. Sam Darnold making his season debut as the starting QB for Carolina. I'm sort of hopeful. I mean, not overly hopeful, but we saw him do some okay things, better than what we've seen from Baker, more along the lines of what we saw from PJ Walker. So we'll see what that means for DJ Moore and the other guys. Ian Thomas with an illness is questionable, didn't practice Thursday and Friday. That just means more Tommy Tremble. Chicago, we touched on this a little bit. Justin Fields, actually, maybe this was during pre-show. Sorry. His non-throwing shoulder is, I think he has a tear, a separation and a tear. He's listed as questionable, was a limited participant Wednesday through Friday. Should be viewed as a game time decision. On Wednesday, Field himself said that he was feeling significant pain in that shoulder. On Friday, head coach Matt Eberflus said, quote, "We've got 48 hours to assess that," when asked whether Fields would play. So I don't know. Personally, I don't think he's going to be in. They don't have a record that really warrants forcing him in, and he is a big part of their future. So I don't know. Unless he's like, I really want to play, I don't see it happening. Cincinnati, Joe Mixon, concussion. He is out. Jamar Chase, hip, is listed as questionable, was a limited participant Wednesday through Friday. Denver, Chase Edmonds with the ankle injury was actually placed on IR. So beyond Latavius Murray, now that they've dropped Melvin Gordon with all his fumble issues, they may most likely will elevate Marlon Mack off the practice squad since Mike Boone is not eligible to come back until week 12 since he is also on IR. Jerry Judy.
The wild Marlon Mack appears.
Yeah, right. This is like his 5th team this season.
And 2 of them were the Texans.
Yeah. Jerry Judy, KJ Hamler, both out this week. Green Bay, Romeo Dobbs, ankle, he continues to be out. Indianapolis, Kylan Granson with an illness, questionable, did not practice Thursday and Friday, so that just means more work for Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods. Probably Jelani Woods being the biggest benefactor there, just because Mo Alley Cox seems to be doing more blocking and not overly involved in the passing game. Kansas City, Clyde Edwards-Helaire with his ankle injury is being placed on IR. Kadarius Toney with his this poor guy and his hamstring, he is out yet again. I don't know what is with his hamstrings, but he just cannot stay on the field.
It's going to be a problem for him.
Yeah. This is his 2nd season only, and he is constantly, he's played like 3 games, maybe no more than 5. It's insane. This poor guy. Las Vegas, Josh Jacobs with a calf injury is questionable. Practiced fully Wednesday and Thursday, but was limited on Friday. So that's not trending in the right direction unless that was just kind of giving him a little rest. Los Angeles Chargers, Mike Williams, ankle, he is out. I think we mentioned this on the show we released on Tuesday that we recorded on Sunday. He played and kind of re-aggravated things. He definitely came back too early, so I don't know how bad it is, but we'll have to keep an eye on if he can help you out in the fantasy playoffs. That really sucks for them. Not super important, but Josh Kelly with his knee, who was on IR, is designated to come off of IR, and there's a chance he will suit up on Sunday. Los Angeles Rams, Matthew Stafford with his neck and concussion issues is listed as out. Wolford also injured, so Bryce Perkins will start again, or not start again, but starting. He played most of last game after Stafford went out. Allen Robinson with an ankle injury that he suffered last week during that game is questionable, was limited participant Wednesday through Friday. Keep an eye on that. Obviously, he'll be the number 1 with Cup out. Tyler Higbee, knee, questionable, limited participant Thursday and Friday, considered a game time decision. Miami, Raheem Mostert, knee, listed as doubtful. This is huge for Jeff Wilson. If you have him on the waivers, if you have him on your bench, you may want to consider playing him, as he was actually doing very well in a timeshare. So Raheem Mostert did not practice Wednesday or Thursday. I didn't see anything about Friday, but the fact that he's listed as doubtful does not bode well. New Orleans, Mark Ingram with his knee injuries, questionable, limited participant Wednesday through Friday. This will be huge if they can get him back. They have nobody behind Kamara. Not that they necessarily need it, but definitely doesn't hurt. New York Giants, we'll get into this more when we get to this game, but Zach Wilson has been benched in favor of Mike White, which is a little surprising. Mike White will be the starter, not Joe Flacco. Pittsburgh Steelers, Jalen Warren, hamstring, questionable, missed Thursday and Friday's practice. Tomlin said not a significant injury, but we saw that this made a huge difference for Najee Harris last week. So if you're a Najee Harris owner, obviously you're hoping he sits out because Harris had his best game by far this season. San Francisco, Deebo Samuel, his hamstring issue has come back. I guess he's questionable, limited participant Wednesday and Thursday. And then what I read looked good on Friday. I'm assuming that means he practiced in full on Friday. So that's trending in the right direction. Tampa Bay, Russell Gage, hamstring, continues to be out. Leonard Fournette with a hip injury is questionable, limited participant Wednesday through Friday. Considered game time decision. Bucks don't seem optimistic. So Rashad White, fire him up, hopefully. And finally, Washington, Logan Thomas with an illness is questionable, limited Wednesday and Thursday, sat out Friday. Boom. Mic
Boom,
drop.
he goes. That's what he says is boom.
I'm gonna need a drink of water for that.
That's right. Breaking news. Leonard
Breaking
Fournette has
news.
been downgraded to doubtful.
Oh,
So Rashad
yeah.
White is in line to start.
Snag him if he's available. I doubt it.
That's against Cleveland. I really like. He shouldn't be. We said 3 weeks ago we should pick him up.
Right.
Cool. All right. So now that we're done with the 9, a heavy, thick 9. It's a chonk boy 9. We're gonna get right into the Week 12 preview, and we're gonna try and keep rolling because we got a special at the end of this, the leftover special. We're gonna go over some trades. I'm gonna give some trade value, both non-dynasty and dynasty. So stay tuned for that. But we'll start off our Week 12 preview. Buccaneers 5-5 in Cleveland. 3-7 Browns. Tampa Bay 3.5-point favorites over under 42.5. We just talked about some of the injuries to both of these. Well, mostly Tampa Bay. Wide receivers generally succeed versus Cleveland. You have your classic 1A, 1B here. Godwin and Evans. Line them up, fire them up. Way to go. This is the last chance for Jacoby Brissett as he sails off into the sunset because Deshaun Watson is supposed to start next week in Houston. I don't think. Let's see. Ravens are 7-3, and the Browns are 3-7. So if the Ravens win and the Browns lose, the Browns are officially eliminated, and Deshaun Watson has wasted a year. And more importantly, the Browns have wasted a year's salary on him.
Yeah.
Good for them.
It's a little suspicious that they extended his suspension to the exact week he plays his old team.
Well, we knew that back in August when that happened.
Right, but it's just, yeah. Anyways,
yeah, we kind of everybody looked around and we were all just kind of like, Nick Chubb, I put in struggling. He's not really struggling, but it's Nick Chubb. Cleveland is down almost 30 rush yards per game over the last 3 games. They were averaging 156 on the year. They are averaging less than 120 now for the last 3 games, which has brought their season average below 150 a game. With Fournette doubtful, Rashad White, yeah, we just said that. Do it again. I'll say it again. Is there an echo in this thing? Go get Rashad White. The answer is yes. That's the start. Rashad White, obviously start Godwin, start Evans. This should be a lock and load scenario for Brady and them. I don't have a sit in this game. Actually, I'm very close to having another start in Donovan Peoples-Jones, who has seen 50 yards of in the receiving core for 7 straight games now. But I would say be wary of Chubb. Tampa Bay only allows 12.8 fantasy points to running backs and has only allowed 3 touchdowns all year on the ground. So something to be wary of. I don't have a lot in this one. I think the Buccaneers win. I think Brissett is basically like, yeah, let me play this week and I'll go ride the bench behind Deshaun for a little bit. I think I'm done with this. I don't really have anything else.
No, yeah, I would agree. The Bucks probably they should take this. They seem to be on a roll. They're coming off the bye. Brady's got to be fired up. Hopefully his mental state it seems to be better after the divorce situation. So yeah.
Yeah, fair for that. Next game, 6-4 Bengals in Tennessee, visiting the 7-3 Titans. Cincinnati 2.5-point favorites, over under at 43 points. The Titans 7-3 feels like much less of an impact than the Bengals 6-4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's me. Is it just me? I feel like those records at minimum should be swapped, and they're not.
Yeah.
Titans threw it for a lot last week. It was a good game for Ryan Tannehill, Robert Woods, Treylon Burks, Austin Hooper. There was many good things to say about them. Offense needs to keep doing that. I don't understand why they haven't thrown it as much to this point, but it would definitely behoove the fantasy owners of Treylon Burks and Robert Woods if you kept throwing it to them, because they, especially Burks should see
Right.
like some big ceiling. We'll see. We'll talk a little bit more about Burks in the trade segment later this show. He is on one of the trades, and it's an interesting trade. So we'll talk about it when we get there. For Cincinnati, Jamar Chase is back. Tennessee allows 25 fantasy points on average to wide receivers. That bodes well. I like Chase. I like Higgins in this one. You draw the attention to Chase. He's going to be next in line. Don't hate Hayden Hurst in this. Joe Mixon is out, so Samaje Perine, lock and load. Honestly, I'll put Rashad White over him as far as like my running back waiver wire ads, but he's number 2 right now. Especially after what he did last week when Mixon left the game. He had 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So check that off your Cincinnati Bengals bingo board. I think it'll be a solid game between, some pressure defense from Tennessee and a powerful Cincinnati offense. Burrow throws it. If Perine can continue to churn yards, if he gets stopped up a lot and they only use him in the pass game, this is going to become a one-dimensional offense, and that's probably not going to bode well for such a defense like Tennessee. Of course, Derrick Henry, I don't need to tell you to play him. Other thing is that, again, Cincinnati is good in coverage when it comes to restricting pass completions. So start Chase, start Higgins. My sit is Austin Hooper, Cincinnati, only allowing 5.5 fantasy points per game to the tight end and only 3 touchdowns over the first 11 games.
Yeah. As far as Chase goes, I'm a little hesitant just in terms of the possibility of limited snaps. He's
fair.
obviously listed as questionable, so just keep an eye on that. But yeah, if he's a full go, you got to play him. And honestly, I feel like this could be a decent game. Like Titans, although we feel a little weird about the fact that they have a 7-3 record, they've been in a lot of, I guess, close games that they probably shouldn't have won, but they're well coached. So this could be a very close game, and I wouldn't be surprised if the Titans come away with a win. But if Chase is a full go, the Bengals probably should win this game.
I don't hate it. Even in Tennessee, the over/under says that, or the spread does.
Right.
2.5 for Cincinnati. So, should be a very good game. I think this is close for host v host, but I didn't go that direction. Last game we'll talk about before our first break. Texans 1-8-1, traveling to Miami to take on the 7-3 Dolphins. The Dolphins are 38-point favorites, 14-point favorites. Over under at 47. It's actually not the highest spread on this slate. We'll talk about that in the next segment. And what I mean by talk about it is we'll basically tell you that it's going to happen and move on. Kyle Allen gets to start instead of Davis Mills. So bye-bye Mavis Dill Pickle Man. This is, to me, this screams like I just need to find something for this offense. I wouldn't think it would start with Davis Mills. I would think it would start with the wide receiver position. But okay. Philip Dorsett, Nico Collins, and Chris Moore make you happy? Sure. Brandon Cooks is there, still doing Brandon Cooks things. Okay. For a team that's 1-8-1 and effectively eliminated from playoff contention as of like this game, unless they somehow pull off a miracle.
Yeah.
The Dolphins in Miami. Don't see that. That's not where you belong, kitty cat. Yeah, I have little interest in the wide receivers because of the switch. I know Kyle Allen has had like sparks over the last 3 years, but this isn't exactly a team you have sparks against.
Right.
Like, honestly, you'd have a better chance going up against, like, if you made the switch next week against Cleveland in Houston. You'd be at home. The team's easier to score on. Why push it against the Dolphins, who are at this point, you have a really good wide receiver defense, middle of the road, 15th in a lot of categories, or roughly, for Houston. But you still have to guard Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill.
Right.
That doesn't go well for a lot of defenses. So I don't see the idea in this one unless it's simply just to send a message.
Right.
Miami should have a rather easy win here. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I don't really understand the decision here either. Like, either way, like I don't know what you're trying to see. I guess maybe you're trying to decide who your backup's going to be next year, because at this point you're basically probably going to draft a QB. Like, you're either deciding whether to keep Mills or not. And yeah, I
By
just
not playing him.
yeah, right.
Decisions made.
Yeah, no, I guess that's what I mean. Is like, you should continue to play him and be able to make that decision. But to your point about Kyle Allen showing some flashes, I don't know when they made. I would assume that he only really had this week with the ones, so I'm not too high on any of them. But in the past, he basically hyper focused one guy, being DJ Moore, and DJ Moore was viable and usable in those games. But I don't excuse me, I don't really know what that means. If Brandon Cooks is kind of like half-assing it out there, then Nico Collins maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, there's like I said, I have no interest in Houston. Damian Pierce to me becomes a force feed option that can only backfire.
Right. I mean, this is going to be a lot of points by Miami. So he's obvious, as we saw, especially last game, he is not game script proof, despite the fact that he's probably one of their, if not best, offensive option. But he is not necessarily a pass catcher. He can catch the ball, but he's not known for that.
If they are planning at all for next year, you will see Amari Rodgers and Benjamin in this. That's my other thing that will back. I mean, that would just prove your point, I think. If they were saying, "Oh, let's see if we're going to keep him for next year too," which wouldn't really make sense if you're keeping Davis Mills. So you don't like. Are you just playing around with a lineup now? Like I don't.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Whole lot of disconnection there. But start Jeff Wilson, because you start running backs against the Houston Texans. It's like one of the top 3 rules of fantasy football over the last 2 years. I'm sitting every single person who's wearing a Houston Texans jersey. There's zero interest for me in this. This is bottom of the barrel for me this week. If there's a team to avoid, and I mean, like, we're talking about Mike White starting for the Jets and possible Trevor Siemian for the Bears, and this is the team I'm avoiding. So
possible DFS shot in the darks, pick one of the wide receivers, but that's like
they're touchdown dependent.
Exactly. Yeah, that's GPP crazy play.
100% GPP. You are not going for you're not going to build it's going to be a huge. It's not a cash game. There's no cash game options there. Not at all. We're going to take our first break. We're going to come back. We're going to keep going through the Week 12 slate, and we're going to give you 5 fantasy flyers. Also, we got 3 whole games of host v host to go over for this weekend. I haven't even talked about it. So we got 3 more. Taylor, sign us off. We'll be back in a minute. I'm going to go get more soda.
We'll see y'all on the flip.
He's bare-chested, banging his chest.
And it's part 2 of episode 24 of the Fantasy Flyer. We're back. Taylor got himself some water. You can see it right there. Visual evidence.
Yeah.
Paying attention. You don't know if I got anything because my cup's not clear, but I did.
I'm not gonna lie, when I went to the fridge to get water, we were talking about all Thanksgiving food, and I really wanted to dig into the leftovers despite the fact that I've already had dinner and I really am not that hungry.
I just took 2 minutes to put away the stuff that came. And
that's probably for the best.
Yeah. It was just sitting out. And I went in to see, I was like, do you want me to put it in the fridge? Because there's not really a lot of room. And then I was like, I can also put it outside because it's like 30 some degrees right now. So like it's a fridge out there too. And I was like, do you want? And she's asleep. So I was like, all right, I'll just shove it in the fridge. And it fit. I managed to puzzle it in there. But
there's always room.
Yeah, I'll have some probably after the show's over. Anyway, back to football. We can't keep dwelling on food, or we're gonna just sitting here doing this. Next game: Bears 3-7 at the Jets, 6-4 Jets. The Jets are 6-point favorites right now, over under 38.5. That's with Justin Fields not ruled out and Mike White in.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's first off, let's talk about Justin Fields. If he doesn't start, it's looking to be Trevor Siemian. That makes for one heck of a turnover-bound game.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see the offense being amazing for either side, if that's the case. The one thing that is the one constant for all of this is that who is interesting right now will not be affected and is not affected by Mike White starting, and that is the running backs for the Jets. We know the Bears, they don't guard any sort of run attack. It's bad. Why not? I mean, Michael Carter, James Robinson, put him in. I'm starting Carter in my league, which I have to do. It's not like I have a choice in this. But this is a good week to start him, especially if Mike White's back there. I think it brings a little bit more pass catching. For some reason, Zach Wilson is affixed upon Garrett Wilson and Tyler Conklin more than either of those two names as far as backfield options. Mike White was very good with them last year during the couple games he started. Now the elephant in the room, I don't know why Mike White and not James. Good heavens. Joe Flacco. I don't get, you let Flacco start the first 3 games. He's seen every person on this offense. Why Mike White?
Yeah, I'm baffled. I mean, let's start off with, I guess, Zach Wilson, right? Like, he has not been great by any means.
No, he's literally like less than 32nd in a lot of QB categories. And if you know anything about football, there's 32 teams. He's literally like 35th in so many categories. And it's like, how are you worse than backups? Like, it's atrocious. I don't know.
But that being said, he was what, 4-2, 5-2?
5-2.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah.
But
He only lost. Right. The defense kept him in it. He didn't do anything amazing. I'm not going to give him credit for why the team was winning. I guess the point being, he's the rookie quarterback. They need to get him up to speed. They need to help him learn. I guess, what's that? Second year. Sorry. I get him not taking ownership for part of the reason that they lost. And yeah, if you're the starting QB, you're a leader on the team, you should take some ownership. I get that. But he's also a highly drafted QB, and I doubt that they're going to, I could be wrong, but I doubt that they're going to say, hey, time to cut ties, move on at this point. So other than sitting him because of not taking ownership, I don't see why they're sitting him. All that aside, yes, why are they starting Mike White? Joe Flacco was 1-2, okay, but he wasn't terrible. He was bombing the ball, and the offense was moving.
He was 1-2 before the defense started doing defense.
Exactly.
The defense was not the first 3 weeks. First 5 weeks, this Jets defense was bad. It was not good, and all of a sudden came the pressures and the natural pressures. No blitz pressures. Sauce Gardner stepped up. DJ Reed stepped up.
Yeah,
like there were so many good things that came from this team weeks, really 5 through 10. Now, if Flacco was to do what he did weeks 1 through 3 with the defense from weeks 5 through 10, you'd probably have a really good team. I don't know. I don't get the Wilson benching. I understand the team has to make a change now.
Yeah.
This is, out of all of the QB changes, this one makes the most sense because you're starting to fade. And a very tough, like the best thing that could have happened so far this week is that the Vikings beat the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And the only other way that this gets any better had been if the Bills had lost yesterday, and they didn't. Which you probably needed that for this to really matter in the grand scheme of things. If the defense can keep going, it'll keep the Jets in this. It'll keep the Jets ahead in this probably. I'm starting Carter. I'm gonna sit Cole Kmet. I'm gonna sit Chase Claypool, who has I think 5 targets in 2 games. So not as good. He hasn't been as I guess he's been more a distraction than anything else. I don't have high expectations for Mike White in this. I want to see if he throws it more effectively and the defense plays up to par like they have been and the team still loses to Fields or not. Do they go back to Zach Wilson?
Right.
Do you pull out Joe Flacco? It doesn't really make. This is a questionable call in my head from Robert Saleh, but at the end of the day, it's probably something that needs to be addressed as far as them and Zach Wilson. It's not something that is just, well, we can let him figure it out. No, because you're kind of in the hunt for things. At 6-4, you need to be realistically 9-5 going in to have a shot at the playoffs.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that means you only get to lose one of your next 4 games. So if Zach Wilson is losing you games, the interesting part is the Buffalo game that they won. Yeah, the defense slowed down Buffalo entirely, but there was also some pieces of that Zach Wilson made happen.
Right.
Wasn't the sole contributor to it, but he was a crucial part to the team getting downfield a couple times late in that game. I am out. I don't know. Best of luck to the Jets. I still think they win this game. It says that in the over-under. They're at home. I don't have anything else from it. I'm mind blown by it a little bit, but if you wake up the kid and he comes back and he starts hitting 65 or 70% completion and he starts throwing it 35 times a game and everybody looks good around him and the defense keeps doing what they're doing, we'll all look like fools, and I'm fine with that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree from a record standpoint, from a making the playoff standpoint, they need to make a change here. I guess going to Mike White is because they saw what they had in Joe Flacco the first 3 games, but you went with Joe Flacco from the get-go. You had Mike White. You made that decision then. What changed now?
Unless they don't realize that the defense wasn't the reason there.
Yeah.
And,
yeah.
I mean, I don't have the only game that I can remember off the top of my head was the 30 points they gave up to Cleveland, which Joe Flacco led them back from with less than 2 minutes to go or something.
Yeah.
To get from a 17-30, and they ended up winning by a point. So like that just speaks to Flacco and also tells you the defense wasn't as good as the defense needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah. The last thing I'll say is if Fields plays, he probably won't run as much, but I feel like the spread is too much and that Chicago actually has a chance to win. If he doesn't play, then the Jets should win this.
The one thing I'll say is the defense doesn't change much with the quarterback, and the natural pressure from this Jets defense matters. And I think him scrambling will be crucial.
Mm-hmm.
But you also only have one other person really running, and that's David Montgomery.
Right.
Because there's no Khalil Herbert. So I think it could be a very close game if people play. I don't think it's necessarily a Bears win. I like them, but I would not be surprised if the Jets still won. So.
Yeah.
Keep an eye on that. Start Carter, start Jamrob. I'm going to sit Kmet and Claypool. Mooney's probably the safest of the 3 options. Next game, Falcons 5-6 at the Commanders 6-5. Washington 4-point favorites at home. Over under 40.5. Falcons need a win to stay in the NFC South picture, which is still the ugliest picture you can paint with any sort of paintbrush. It kind of looks like somebody used their feet and like half of their finger knuckles and we're just like this. Falcons still aren't throwing it a lot, which hurts now because even when you do throw it, you no longer have a wild Kyle Pitts standing out there. He is on the IR for the next 4 weeks, at least.
Yeah.
Do you have any trust in Ferkser or Parker Hess? I don't like this team. I didn't like it with Kyle Pitts. I don't like it now.
No.
They are not viable fantasy options. Go somewhere else. Atlanta has to simply produce better. Their production is just not good. The good news is the now standalone option in this offense with the release of Bryan Edwards. You now have Olamide Zaccheaus and the real winner, Drake London, who should probably be this should be a safe start for him, I think. Chase Young is active. For some reason in my head that screams Cordell Patterson and I don't know why. I feel like activating Chase Young makes Cordell Patterson less attractive to me. I don't know what, because Chase Young's a defensive end. It's not like he's a linebacker who can just spy on him. Washington sticking with Heineke. Wide receivers are excelling a little more with him than with Wentz.
Yeah.
However, Washington they've been running the ball a little bit more the last 3 games, which you can take with a grain of salt because 2 of those games were against Philly, where they held the ball for literally over 40 minutes of the game, and they only ran it for like 17 of those minutes. And then the other one was Houston, where you naturally want to run the ball. So, Atlanta 30th in the league versus wide receivers, not improving. So line up Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, Terry McLaurin if you have them. I like McLaurin, of course, the most. Honestly, I like Dotson a little bit more in this matchup. He's been a little quiet since he came back. So start London. I like Damiere Byrd. They got to throw it deep. Why not? He's been quiet. He's good for 1 to 2 catches, but they're going to be for like 60 yards apiece.
Yeah.
The deep attack here. Cameron Curl is probably going to end up being on. Well, he's going to be on the side of the field. Drake London's on. I suppose he won't be on him so much. But yeah, that opens up a little for Damiere Byrd, Olamide Zaccheaus. You're stretching outside of London on this offense. But London, and I'll stretch for Byrd in this one, I guess. Sit Cordell Patterson just because my gut tells me so. I don't know why. Something in this tells me this is not a good matchup for him. They've limited the rush a few times. Dameon Pierce had a horrible time against this team. Miles Sanders had a horrible time against this team. I don't know. That doesn't tell me great things really for Algier, but mostly for Patterson too. So anything else for you from this one? I like Washington in this one because the NFC East is the toughest division in the football.
Yeah, Washington's actually been keeping it close in a lot of games. I mean, like the games with the Philly. I mean, they beat Philly. Chase Young is questionable. I was trying to. I don't know why, but the page isn't loading for some reason. I forget exactly what it said, but yeah, he's questionable. So whether or not he plays this week is up in the air. But the Washington defense has been decent, if not very solid without him. So having him back would make a huge difference, but not necessarily, especially against the Falcons.
Makes sense. I didn't know it was questionable. I thought he was officially in. I know they had to activate him because his 21-day window was up Wednesday. What is happening over here? The 2 cats are attacking each other. Hey. Sorry. Cat timeout. Next game, Broncos 3-7 at the Panthers 3-8. Ooh boy, this is the stinkiest of socks if you could ever have a game. Denver 1-point favorites, over under at 36. Sam Darnold, like you mentioned, he's getting the start. It's not a great team to go up against in your return, but when you're asked to do something, welcome back. Latavius Murray will take over. Carolina defense middle of the road versus the run. Marlon Mack will back up, but obviously much smaller amount of work. I think he's been called up according to the depth chart. He has been. I don't know. That'll be something that you probably won't see, but 3 or 4 runs from him, and that'll be it. Russell Wilson, he's still a quarterback who will start, and that's about all we have to say about that. Russell Wilson cooking is the equivalent of putting a frozen turkey in a hot vat of oil for Thanksgiving. Can he succeed with limited wide receivers? The answer is probably. I don't like Carolina so much in this matchup. Denver's defense actually they force opponents to throw, and then they defend deep balls very well, and then first downs don't happen, and they get the ball back. So opponent yards per pass is 5.2 yards, which is second in the league. So their defense is very nice. And the opponents have to rush. They rush 39% of the time, and they pass 61% of the time. So they literally force you to pass the ball, and then they don't let you pass the ball successfully. And that's how they get the ball back. So They're also allowing only 14 fantasy points to wide receivers through 11 weeks on an average per game. So, despite that, with Sam Darnold coming back, they don't have a lot of film on him.
Mm-hmm.
Not this year, in any way. Not this year. So I like DJ Moore in this. I'm gonna go to the well, open up the old playbook, pull something out of my sleeve. DJ Moore. The lack of rush that this Denver team forces makes me not like Foreman or Hubbard this week, so I'm sitting them. Cortland Sutton, yeah, go to town. Kendall Hinton seems to be the number 2 while Jerry Jeudy is out. If Jeudy is out, is
He
still
is,
out?
yep.
He
And so
still
is
out?
KJ
Okay.
Hamler, yep.
Well, yeah. So those are probably the number 2. Dulcich, fine. With Ian Thomas out, I don't hate Tommy Trumbull. He's going to see a lot of snaps. Somewhere in the range of probably 70 to 80% of the snaps. And I don't care to pick a winner in this game because it really doesn't matter. Next thing. Anything from you from this one?
I mean, to your point, Denver's defense is really the only reason they've been in any games and had the opportunity to win 3 games. So this is going to be a dumpster fire. I'm not really interested in a whole heck of a lot.
You suck,
Yeah.
jackass.
I don't know what's going on with Russell Wilson and this offense, but I'm sorry, Denver's defense.
It's so accurate. Ravens 7-3 at the Jaguars 3-7. Baltimore 3.5 point favorites over under at 43.5. Ravens are sliding offensively. They put up 13 points against the Panthers last week. I think it was last week, right? I try and
think
forget
so.
those horrible games.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that was only a slight step above the Patriots and Jets game
Yeah, right.
that existed on Sunday for some reason, one reason or another. Jaguars also are losing a little touch with their offensive momentum. So let's see who gets it back first. Darrell Henderson will debut. Your opinion, scale of 1 to 10, what's his impact?
3.
Wow, you above me. I put 2.
Yeah, it's not
He's
very
a
high
bet.
at all.
Travis Etienne has to still be the go-to.
Yeah.
Also interesting that it's not interesting, but they traded away James Robinson for the pick, and then they pick up Darrell Henderson. They were like, yeah, we'll take this pick, and then we'll just go get somebody else.
Yeah.
Ravens allow over 20 fantasy points to wide receivers per game. Jacksonville has to throw the ball. We'll stay it. Christian Kirk, he gets like 10 targets a game. Zay Jones gets like 8 targets a game. Evan Ingram has slid the last 2 games. He has had less than 4 targets both games. Okay. Not as much of a fan of him through this one either.
Mm-hmm.
The rush is going to be interesting because the Ravens are still very defense heavy. Yeah, words are difficult. Jackson, however, also has to run the ball. Jacksonville. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Jacksonville is lax on applying center field pressure. They are allowing 0.5 more yards per rush attempt over the past 6 weeks. They went from just under 4 yards in the first 3 weeks to 4.1 through week 6. And then since week 6, they've allowed another half yard per rush. It's roughly translates to about 25 yards a game, going the wrong direction with their rush defense. Start and sit. Your guess is as good as mine in this one.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot to go on. This doesn't seem like with a 43.5 point over under and a close spread like that in Jacksonville. I like Zay Jones. I like Christian Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
That's about it.
Probably Mark Andrews. He's usually pretty safe.
That's a lock. You can.
Yeah.
He's. You should always start Mark Andrews. I want to say DeMarcus Robinson because the last 2 games he's been very good.
Yeah, especially. I mean, he's questionable, but he was trending in the right direction. Duvernay is also questionable and seemed
if they both
less
are
likely.
Out,
yeah.
If they both are out, Tyron Wallace, I believe his name is.
That sounds
He's
right.
like 4th on the depth chart. Super sneaky. DFS play, tournament play. Gus Edwards, if he sits, I like. Kenyon Drake is tough at this point because he's had but he's be the one. I'll end up playing Justice Hill because I'm disgusted with my running back. Yeah. To the 4 p.m. games, we'll let that one go. Chargers 5-5 at the Cardinals 4-7. Is that right? Believe it is
Yeah.
4-7. Okay. Chargers 3-point favorites in Arizona, over under at 48. I actually should check if that is correct because Kyler Murray was officially ruled in today. So I wonder if that's changed.
I'll check.
Well, while you do that, I'm going to tell all of the lovely folks at home that this is the first game.
Let's get ready to rumble!
Of the Host v Host series for Week 12. Actually, I should say for the weekend of Week 12. With Kyler returning, you look like you have something to say.
No, I was just gonna say, yeah, I have 48, and I do have 2.5 on the spread,
That's
but
okay.
over under is still 48.
Okay, so maybe that is with Kyler. I don't know. Kyler's returning, big help for this past game. If there's no Rondale Moore, if Marquise Brown doesn't play more than like 30 or 40% of the snaps, I think this makes it very easy to just double cover DeAndre Hopkins and make. It doesn't look like Greg Dortch is going to play, who I didn't realize had the most yards and catches. Well, he had the most yards. He had the same amount of catches as DeAndre Hopkins last week. It was disgusting. I was like, 9 for 108. Nobody wants to trust that.
Yeah.
James Conner would probably be a great person to turn to, as the Chargers are second only to the Texans in being bad at the run. For the Chargers, we know the Cardinals are 31st versus tight ends. Gerald Everett, is he questionable still? I didn't see
I did not have him on my
an injury
injuries.
report?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah, Gerald Everett, go to town. I believe Donald Parham will be back next week. I believe he's coming off of IR.
That sounds right.
It was a great game last week from Keenan Allen. I want to see it continue. He'll have a little bit more help with Mike Williams not being in the fray. Josh Palmer will continue to see wide receiver 2 upside. Fine. With Gerald Everett being my third option, if not borderline second option, I don't really have anything else to play from the Chargers. Austin Eckler, yeah, yep. There's par for the course for him. That's fine. I like James Conner in this one. I like Gerald Everett. I put sit for Rondale Moore. That was before he's out. Sit him. If Greg Dortch plays, sit him. If Marquise Brown plays, I'm probably going to sit him because he's probably not going to play a lot of snaps. And I don't know who is even after them on the depth chart. Like, who's going to catch a ball besides DeAndre Hopkins?
Yeah, I don't know what they're gonna do. I mean, I can read off some. The AJ Green is still there. Robbie Anderson.
Oh, wow.
But
A wild AJ Green appears. Good God. He may actually have to have some catches. That's if all of them are sitting out, that is going to be a force. Oh, Robbie Anderson.
yeah, AJ
my
Green
God.
actually had nine targets last week.
Last week. Yeah. I honestly though, I like Robbie Anderson at that point
Yeah.
over Green. I do. If Moore sits, well, Moore is sitting, but if Dortch sits and Marquise Brown is playing, if Marquise Brown is playing, I'd still like Robbie Anderson. He's going to end up being the 2. Also, Trey McBride. As well. So, yeah. This is a tough one for me. Over or under at 48. The injuries are actually make a difference for me in this one. Man, Chargers are 5-5. In Arizona, though, I'm gonna take the Cardinals in this one. I'm gonna let you go the other side.
Okay.
I'm gonna go Arizona. Arizona 26, Chargers 24.
Okay. I started with a tad bit lower score, but I ended up with Chargers 30, Arizona 24.
Okay. All right, so we got a difference in the first game already. Next game, Raiders 3-7 in Seattle to face the Seahawks, who are 6-4 and tied for the NFC West. Seattle 3.5-point favorites, over under 47.5. Let's get the elephant out of the room immediately. The Raiders are bad defensively, and all things defense. They are on offense what the Broncos are on defense, and vice versa. So, Seattle is dead last for his tight end, 67 yards per game. Foster Moreau, ching ching. Take a ticket and stand in line if you want some Foster Moreau this week, because I'm going to go after him. Tyreek Woolen will probably end up being one of two people on Devontae Adams. Would be my goal if I'm Seattle in anyway. Great matchup for the Seattle wide receivers. You can trust in some DK Metcalf and some Tyler Lockett as well. This game at 47.5, I see it going over. The only way that is actually a true over, like right at the number, I think, is if the Raiders continue to not score in the second half. They've scored a grand total of 29 points in their last 4 games.
Yeah.
In the second half, which is not swell. If you're just starting with learning math, that's about 7 points a game. So, 7.5 actually. Yeah. Kenneth Walker. Let's have a little small chat about Kenneth Walker. Normally, the one thing that the Raiders were good at the first few weeks of the season, they would be able to stop up the run a little bit, make you throw it, and they'd let you beat him there. Now they're allowing 1 more yard per rush attempt since week 6 again. So Seattle offense, I think, could roll to a 30-point game here. This isn't our host v host at all, but I'm taking Seattle. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it's 28-32, and then you get like 21 points from the Raiders. Start Metcalf, start Lockett, Foster Moreau, good trustworthy there. Mac Hollins too. I like the attention that Devontae Adams is going to get. Sit the defenses. Something about this doesn't scream success for either defenses. So, and as far as the DFS lineups in the leagues, this is a game I would probably avoid, along with the Rams defense in the next game we'll talk about. Yeah. Anything else from this one from you? I like Seattle a lot in this one.
Yeah, ditto.
All right. Good talk. Good talk. Helpful. Very, very informational. Next game, Rams 3-7 at the Chiefs 8-2. Have we had an official release from the Rams about whether they want to fully ship this sucker in this year? Because they should.
Yeah, for real.
Kansas City, get ready for this one. 15.5-point favorites. Over under at 42.5. If you're bad at splitting and then doing math, the projected score of this game is 36-6. That's it. No, I have that wrong. But that's still okay.
Yeah, I thought it was like 13.
That'd be 20. No, it'd be 29-13. Yeah.
Yeah.
I doubled it accidentally on each side. 29-13. Still really bad. I had to do it this week, so this is
round 2. Fight.
Host v host. I want us to pick the amount of pain that the Rams are going to suffer, because I think that's where we're going. So I don't need to. I already have it written down. Kansas City for both of us. I'm dead serious. I don't. Think
Yeah.
Okay. Now, the Chiefs. Yeah, it's the only thing that's really of note here is Isaiah Pacheco is a great standout, and I would, because of game script, I would think you play him because he's got to run the ball 25 times in this game. Juju is going to play, which we learned today. The next in line behind them is Sky Moore, so fine. If you're going to take a dart throw, that's my dart throw. He played 47% of snaps last week.
Right.
Sit Allen Robinson. I don't like anything about this. You can sit all of the Rams. Like, they should sit like the whole game.
Yeah.
Just put out the practice squad. Let the Chiefs score 80 points and we'll all go home. Bryce Perkins. Enough said. Man, I'm gonna take. The thing is that the defense doesn't necessarily mean that Kansas City can score 30 points, and yet Kansas City will.
Yeah.
I'm going to go Kansas City 33 and Rams 10.
Oh my God. That's the exact score I have.
Is it really?
Yeah,
Well, guess what? We're either both going to get 15 points or we're both going to get 3 or we're both going to get 0.
Yeah.
So if that happens, Patrick Mahomes never showed up for the game.
Yeah,
The
seriously.
only way that happened. Actually, even if that does happen, Pacheco is still the better running back because the Rams don't run the ball. So they still win. Yeah, I have to pick out the game where we had to pick the Rams game because the Rams just aren't going to learn. They aren't going to learn. And now they're going to have to literally between Bryce Perkins and Cam Akers. This game is like Browns fans are seeing this happen and they're just going,
No, God! No, God, please, no! No! No!
the sweet
No!
sounds of Rams fans. How the mighty have fallen.
Yeah.
Next game, Saints 4-7 at 49ers 6-4. San Francisco 8.5 point favorites. San Francisco is too good. They really are. They have so many weapons.
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans is not. Andy Dalton, really, I think there's some like we have to start talking about why they're not putting Jameis Winston back in.
Mm.
It's just a thing. Like they beat the Rams last week. That's not saying a lot. It's just not. It's not really a great little. It's not a trophy you want to put up there on the shelf. The play calling is bad. You got to think QB change is coming this offseason at minimum. Jameis Winston has another year. Andy Dalton's a free agent. I don't know why Winston's not playing now. If you really think that Dalton's going to get you into the playoffs, I guess stick with him. But the second that becomes an impossible reality, you need to put Winston back in to show that you have some faith in him. Otherwise, you better be very, very, very set on getting a new quarterback at some point. Because Cooper Rush, there you go. There's where Cooper Rush could go. He could imagine being the Chris Olave dynasty owner. You now have to trust Cooper Rush to throw it 70 yards. It's all right. You'll be fine. Very involved San Francisco offense. You don't know who's going to get the attention. Is it Kittle? Is it McCaffrey? Is it Elijah Mitchell? Is it Debo? Is it Ayuk? Is it random wide receiver number 6 this week? No, Jimmy G's got so many, like I said, there's so many different tools in the tool belt. San Francisco should probably win, I would say 5 more games this year. Their schedule doesn't look the toughest. They play Tampa Bay in a couple weeks, and that's going to be like their toughest test. Toughest test. Saints defense has to keep pressure on and keep the game close, but it's going to be a defensive game between both. The only difference is better offenses with San Francisco by a mile. Andy Dalton can't turn it over, which he's been doing. Juwan Johnson is my start. I'm going to sit Brandon Ayuk in the sense that he's probably not going to have another 2-touchdown game. There's really no way you can tell where this offense is going to go. I like Debo, who kind of has to bounce back again. He didn't have a bad game last week, but he should have that performance more often. So San Francisco in this one for me. Anything from you?
I want to throw out the fact that Taysom Hill was more involved in the passing game. Not a heck of a lot. He threw 3 times, but just kind of from it's a little cheap, but he's labeled as a tight end. If he's throwing the ball, rushing the ball, catching the ball, that's a bit of a cheat code in the tight end spot if you're hurting there. And I definitely don't hate doing that. I might do that in a couple of my leagues. But if he's throwing the ball, that's a huge benefit and gets you a lot of points in the tight end spot.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, it's a great point to bring him up because he's sneakily has so many different ways to get fantasy points.
Exactly.
He's probably sneakily in the top 15 tight ends or top 12 right now.
Oh yeah.
Because of how many different ways that he can score. Yeah, that's great point. I'd still as far as from a fantasy point of view, he's someone you could probably look at. I don't know if I'm sold on him this year. I want to see what the changes that this staff makes in the offseason. Yeah, the team isn't quite as put together as it was on either side of the ball compared to last year or many years before. So We're going to take our final break. We have 2 more games to really quickly go over. We're going to give you the 5 fantasy flyers, and then it is time for the leftover show, which is all about our trade talk. We're going to go over a few trades that we saw, give you some or ballpark trade value figures somewhat, especially for the non-dynasty and the dynasty fans. Because
And
we
I
got
haven't seen
dynasty.
these. I've been keeping my eyes off of them so I can give
Yes.
some first takes.
It will be a surprise, a little bit more of a gut check for Taylor. There is one, I think it's definitely a dynasty, that is a monster. I
Really.
can't wait I can't wait. It's just Debbie's so good. Taylor, sign us off for the final time. We'll be right back.
We'll see you all on the other side.
Deucey. And welcome back to the Juicy Tender Part 3 of episode 24 of the Fantasy Flyer. We got 2 more games to go over. I'm going to give you 5 fantasy flyers for myself. Taylor will do the same. Then we're going to talk about some trades. Sound good? Awesome. Let's keep it rolling. Packers 4-7 at the Eagles 9-1. This is Sunday Night Football in Philadelphia. The Eagles are 6.5-point favorites over under 60 or 46.5. Excuse me. Interesting, because I feel like in Lambeau that would mean it would be like almost a 1-point game for an
Right.
Eagles team that seems to be slipping the last 2 weeks. Oh boy, juicy. Eagles haven't been as crisp as I put it. Not as crisp. The turnovers are hurting them. They lead the league since week 8 with 2.3 turnovers per game. Oh dear. Better opponents would have made them pay a lot worse. The Colts are probably one of 5 or 6 teams that you can turn the ball over as many times as you did and lose that game or win that game still. A lot of other teams the Eagles would have been out at the beginning of the 4th quarter. You just couldn't do that. Philadelphia allowing 6 third down conversions per game since week 8, which is tied for 24th in the league, which sounds like it's not really that bad. But unfortunately, tied for 24th is 6 teams. So the next one below it is tied for 30th and then 32nd. So not good. Not good. Green Bay is 5th in yards per completion in that same time frame. They've controlled the ball a little bit more. They had a great game against Dallas 3 weeks ago, something like that. I tried to forget. Green Bay, however, has 2 fumbles lost over its last 3 games and an interception per game in the same time frame. I think if Rodgers can get Watson, if that connection can keep going, if Aaron Jones can be successful, if the defense can hold like the Eagles to some 3-and-outs or some 5-and-outs or something of that nature, if you can get stops before they cross into Green Bay's side of the field, this game could be close. We saw the Green Bay offensive line hold up the Dallas rush attack, which is, similar to, the Eagles is similar to Dallas in the fact they both are very monstrous. Since the last time the Eagles played, they have added Ndamukong Suh, the nose tackle. Welcome to Philadelphia. Welcome, sir. I feel like it could be close. I am going to start Robert Tonyan in this. I feel like between the secondary that has been very successful for the Eagles, Christian Watson would be a target. That makes me scared for him in a fantasy sense. Randall Cobb was a very good outlet last week for Aaron Rodgers. Don't hate that. Don't hate Tonyan. I think Tunyan's a little sleeper in this one. You start Brown, you start Smith. Less likely. I'm less of a fan of Quez Watkins this week, but who knows? He could have another 4, 5, 6 target game and a touchdown. So I'm still going to take the Eagles, but man, I would not be surprised if the Packers stun the Eagles in this one.
They've definitely turned things around. Yeah, I mean, home game, Eagles hopefully making some adjustments. Yeah, I still think the Eagles come away with a win here, but the Packers have something going here. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Aaron Jones, Christian Watson, having Cobb back doesn't hurt. Lazard's still there.
Yep.
So
Most options, as many options as you can have.
yeah, and yeah, I mean, and Tunyon as well. So yeah, I mean, Rodgers he can still do Rodgers things.
The key to that team has been the offensive line last 3 weeks. They're giving Rodgers time in the pocket.
Mm.
And when they're not giving Rodgers time in the pocket, it's because Aaron Jones is running through it. Like, do it again.
Right. You found something.
It's a method for success. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last game we'll talk about in the last game that's on the slate. So if we talked about others, it would be for imaginary purposes. Steelers 3-7 traveling to Indianapolis on Monday Night Football. The 4-6-1 Colts are hosting Indianapolis 2.5-point favorites over under 39. And this is the final of our host v host games, and it's not working. There it is. This is Pickett versus Ryan. Oh boy, got a juicy little matchup here. Pickett looked good last week. The Colts have looked good since they stopped fixing things that weren't the problem. They stopped, they wanted to dance around the problem more or less. Indianapolis defense has been better. They're allowing 4 yards per play. Which is a yard less per play than weeks 1 through 7. So small changes and those small statistics. It's the tiny little things that help a team get better. And you can see it, as much as people still don't want to admit the Colts are better, or they want to pretend that it's something else. The O-line, they had 4 sacks last week, which is probably not great, but the average for a team in the NFL is like just below 4. Suffering about those many sacks per game. You're back to average, not 9. Not 9. And for reference, Jalen Hurts, who is 76 times more mobile than Matt Ryan, had 3 sacks. He was sacked 3 times. So it's not like your offensive line, they did something. It's almost like hiring a coach who used to be on an offensive line helps them somehow. It's just amazing. Indiana has a rush offense uptick, 4.1 yards per carry to 4.9. Remember that thing I just said about the offensive line? They're controlling the ball. They're controlling the game. They're letting Matt Ryan do Matt Ryan things because they're not letting people through the offensive line. It's amazing how that works. I don't know how many. It's been literally 6-7 weeks we've been saying it.
Yeah.
And I've just been sitting here screaming at a camera while Frank Reich is playing with Legos. Pittsburgh, however, this is a defense that doesn't allow a lot of rush yards. 3.9 per carry, which is 5th in the league. They allow only a half of a rush touchdown per game, 0.5 per game over the season, which is 3rd in the league. So this is going to be a little bit of a tough test for Jonathan Taylor. Still a very good running back. We know that. He has much more opportunity now that the offensive line is aware of what their job is. I feel like Indianapolis could have a way to move the ball, but the thing is Pittsburgh's bad versus wide receivers. So when they stop the run, they don't stop passes. Start Pittman, start Pierce, start Paris Campbell. If Granson plays, I like Kyle Granson in this. If he doesn't play, I like Mo Alley Cox. It's fine. Let people let Matt Ryan pass it. He still throws the ball like the 4th most out of anyone in the league. Let it happen. It'll be okay. For Pittsburgh, with the influx of Kenny Pickett being more of a game manager, Najee Harris had a great week. He might be in for a rougher time this week compared to last week. Indianapolis, as we mentioned 2 weeks ago, is like 2nd in yards per carry allowed, like 4 point. It's less than that. 4.2. That might be yards per attempt. Might be different. I don't know. I was close. I don't know. I can't remember what the exact stat was, but they were good at stopping the run, and it worked, and they did it again. So, start Deontay Johnson. He's my start. He had 4 catches for 21 yards last week. He has to find some uptick. There's no Chase Claypool here. Pat Freiermuth has been very good in the middle of the field.
Mhm.
They just need somebody on the outside. Pickett can throw. Pickett can decipher plays a lot faster than Mitch Trubisky can. So I like Pickett's growth already. This isn't a good year for the Steelers, but just get used to the system there, Kenny. TJ Watt is back, so my sit is actually Matt Ryan himself. So if they can buy him time, if he can get 5 or less sacks, then Indianapolis has a chance here. So that's my key. They may have to double TJ Watt a little bit. Anything else for this one from you? I am gonna go. It's still Kenny Pickett, who's still learning, and mostly because I'm starting Matt Ryan. I'm going to be hopeful for a Colts win. I'm going to go Colts 21, Steelers 17.
Oh wow. I'm right there with you. Colts 21, Steelers 18. And yeah, I mean, I think to your point, I mean, Tomlin's a good coach and he's trusting the process, and we're seeing improvements from Pickett. And yeah, I think that hopefully he had buy-in and he's not going to get axed. I don't see why that would happen, but this is the process. This is how you get new quarterbacks up to speed. And yes, they have a losing record. They're not going to make the playoffs probably, and whatever. But this bodes well for the future. So yeah, I agree with all that. I guess as far as Deontay Johnson, the only Pickett so far has not been he hasn't been able to get 2 wide receivers super involved. It's been like Freiermuth and a wide receiver, and then sort of the running back. So Pickens really seems to be the biggest benefactor. And I do agree, Deontay Johnson really needs, I mentioned this before, needs to regress to the mean in a positive way. But it does seem like Pickens is really starting to become, if not already, the number one. So I don't know what that means for Deontay Johnson with Pickett learning and having struggles here and there. But it may just not be Deontay Johnson's season. We may have to wait till next year.
That's fair. What's your you said 21-18. That's right.
Yeah.
All right, so that is going to conclude the week 12 preview. And now I have my 5 fantasy flyers. So do you have yours? If you don't, you got about 2 minutes to go over it because I'm going to tell them mine right now. Okay.
All right. Lay them on me.
So my 5 fantasy flyers, real quick. Hit the bird noise. You know what that sound means. My first fantasy flyer isn't really much of a flyer, but he's probably a flyer because of Leonard Fournette, same thing. Lord. Yeah. Rashad White. He's like flyer in the sense that he's not a number 1, but he should be a number 1. Number 2, Michael Carter. Mike White, Michael Carter. Bears defense, bad versus the run. It adds up to things. Number 3, Foster Moreau. Tight ends versus Seattle. Line them up. Number 4, Josh Palmer. He's probably dropped from your non-flyer into a flyer because of the return of last week of Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. Well, now Mike Williams is back out, so also a very respectable option to if you were to go with Gerald Everett. I would not hate that. My last one, Donovan Peoples-Jones. Sneakily getting yardage, sneakily getting targets. If you're playing from behind, like will probably be the case for at least some of the game against Tampa Bay, Brissett will have to throw it. Donovan Peoples-Jones has been very serviceable. So Rashad White, Michael Carter, Foster Moreau, Josh Palmer, DPJ are my 5 fantasy flyers for week 12. Your turn.
So I'm gonna have to pivot here. We have a lot of overlap. I had Carter, White, Moreau, and DPJ. So here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna keep White.
Okay.
I'm gonna axe everybody else. I'm gonna do. All right, here. I'm gonna do.
I went first and I completely ruined
Yeah.
my fantasy flyers. This is what happens when you turn it into. The other thing we can do is just tell them that's going to be the 5 flyers, and we just won't have 15 points this week because those are some rock solid. Like to be honest, if I win, Taylor has to get 7.5 points because he called it too.
All right, I'm gonna go Pacheco
Ooh,
if we'll
good one.
allow that.
Mhm.
I'm gonna
I'm gonna
keep
let
White because that I think that one. If we both don't have that, then you're definitely gonna win. Campbell, Paris Campbell,
Mm.
Gerald Everett, and Traylon Burks.
Traylon Burks. Trust in the past to keep going in Tennessee.
Yeah, not the best matchup, but he had a great game, and I think things will continue for him.
I respect it. So there are 5 fantasy flyers for each of us, 15 points on the line in the host v host competition, as well as our 3 games. We'll go over all of that on Wednesday now, as it's now going to be a Wednesday show going forward because schedules. However, going forward, we will have for this episode, the remainder of this episode, we're going to have our leftover special. Nom, 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 nom. We're going to talk about the trade offer gauntlet. It's the easiest way to put it. Non-dynasty and dynasty, a couple trade offers. We'll go over them in a fantasy context. And we're going to start off with number 1. If you slowly scroll down and you just only look at number 1 and just go one by one, it'll work out great. So non-dynasty, this is first trade: Mike Evans, Tyler Lockett, Deshaun Watson, and Tony Pollard for Josh Jacobs and Jalen Waddle. So I will tell you my first thoughts while I'll let you coordinate your thoughts. My first thoughts on this is team 1 trading Evans, Lockett. There has to be some big, there has to be a good mid-range wide receiver here. So you're trading away Lockett, you're trading away Evans, you're getting Waddle, who is probably safely a top 8 wide receiver this year based on points. Evans hasn't been top 10. Lockett has a lot of targets, but is still only top 20. Giving up 2 top 20 or top 25 wide receivers for Jalen Waddle. Okay. Deshaun Watson, you have to have another quarterback. I imagine you do because he's not going to play until week 13. Team 2 probably doesn't have a good quarterback.
Right.
They've been waiver surfing or streaming, and that's fine. Tony Pollard and Josh Jacobs is the interesting piece for me. Jacobs has not been effective the last 4 weeks as he was the first 6.
Right.
Tony Pollard has been more effective his last 4 weeks, so he's kind of like a sell high on Pollard, buy low on Jacobs. It depends. The big answer for this trade comes down to me as to whether team 1 and team 2 have winning or losing records. Only one of these trades anywhere in here is the record put in. And it's actually from a couple weeks ago, a trade that I found, but I wanted to put it in there because it gives us good context. If team 1 is fighting for this championship, I like this trade as long as there's another running back there to accompany Josh Jacobs, and you have another wide receiver and your flex is filled out. That's my take on it immediately. Value-wise, that's the only way this makes sense for team 1 because you have overvalued for team 2 by a mile to make it happen. But I feel like for team 1, if that puts them in that's a championship searching trade, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would agree. I think I would not give up this much for those 2 guys. But I agree. There's a lot of context that could be put in here, whether somebody's on a dynasty run. If they're getting rid of Deshaun Watson, then they have a QB that they're comfortable with, and the other team doesn't have a QB that's very good or not a lot of upside. Personally, I think Tony Pollard continues to have a good season. Josh Jacobs, I think basically we'll see Josh Jacobs sort of find a happy medium between where he was and where he is. Waddle, honestly, Waddle is the biggest piece here that, Evans and Lockett's boomer bust. Evans, we haven't seen what we wanted so far from him. Mm-hmm. That being said, much like Green Bay, Tampa Bay is kind of figuring things out, and they've been trending in the right direction. Now they have White turning things on. They actually like we've been seeing that running game get going, and we've been seeing Godwin start to regress to the mean in a positive way. So I would rather probably have Waddle than either of these two. But yeah, I would personally I would not give up that much. But anyways, yeah, there's a lot of
Well,
context to be
that's
said.
fair to say.
Yeah.
The other thing that's important to note is that the schedules for Jacobs and Waddle, not great for their positions. Not great. Granted, it's hard to not have a good game when your co-wide receiver is Tyreek Hill.
Right.
He's a big detractor of attention. But they play Jets, Patriots, Bills, and Packers still. For the Raiders, there's really only one game in here that I'm super thrilled to play Josh Jacobs in. They play Seahawks, Chargers, Patriots, Rams, Steelers, 49ers, Chiefs. 4 of the names I just said are in the top 10 against running backs. The only one that's really interesting being the Chargers because they allow rush yards per attempt. And Jacobs has been more in the pass game, but that's a lot to pay for somebody. And unfortunately, that's probably, like I said, a buy low on Jacobs, buy at the mean for Waddle, and sell high on a couple of the other ones.
Yeah. No,
I'm not a huge fan of it, to be honest, as an
yeah,
overall
and the schedule is something that people should really be taking into account here, especially
huge.
especially for the playoff chunk, the fantasy playoff chunk of said schedule. And that would be an opportunity to maybe a player has some tough games, like maybe they had one last week, they have one this week, but then looking ahead to the playoffs, they have some good teams. So if you know a player is in that situation and you think that player will come back, then you may be able to buy low on them. And to your point, Josh Jacobs, Jalen Waddle, kind of going in the opposite direction against some tougher opponents coming up.
Yeah. The other thing about that is, we can actually talk about it next because he's involved in the next trade. Trade number 2, Tyler Lockett, Jeff Wilson, and Kyler Murray in exchange for Austin Eckler. So obviously, again, getting rid of Tyler Lockett was probably, for a non-dynasty league, probably somewhere in between 5th and 8th round pick. Not your wide receiver 1. Questionable as whether it's a wide receiver 2.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting part here is Kyler Murray for me, because Kyler Murray would have been also around 5th, 4th, 5th round, 3rd, 4th, 5th round for most 10 to 12 teams.
Yeah.
And then Jeff Wilson just being an operative piece to give a running back to the other team. Austin Eckler, obviously, very juicy as a running back, mostly pass catching. Lockett, which, as we talked about in the other one, has been middle of the road. Like, he's a top 30 wide receiver this year. Has several. I think he has 6 touchdowns. Done very well. His schedule the rest of the way out includes Raiders, Rams, Raiders, Rams, Panthers, 49ers, Chiefs, Jets, Rams again. I like that for a continued production. I don't see anything in there that immediately screams he's going to get stopped up. Best part about having DK Metcalf opposite field, it's hard to put attention on both of them. A smaller 1A, 1B to Hill, Waddle, or Godwin, Evans. But with Eckler coming in, I feel like this is trading away Kyler Murray means you've been surviving off of with his injuries, which he's missed 3 games now this year.
At least probably, 2, yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, because he missed the last 2. So you've been streaming somebody for who knows how long. You're okay to continue with that. Is this taking advantage of a quarterback stream, giving up 6 or 8 points at the quarterback position to get 12 or 15 somewhere else? Because that's what it looks like to me. It looks like Eckler is. It looks like I don't have a running back 2. So I'm going to get rid of my flex wide receiver. I'm going to get rid of an upside running back, right? Like specifically this week, probably going to play solo running back against the Texans and Jeff Wilson. And then what would likely be an upgrade for the other person at quarterback
Mhm.
to get an upgrade myself at the running back position. So I think it's a bit overpaid again, but it's another one of those championship searching trades. I have to find
Exactly.
where I'm weak and I have to boost it.
Yeah. This person throwing out the offer for Eckler may have gotten Justin Fields off the waiver wire, and maybe that's why they're getting rid of Murray. I don't know, but it seems like they have some quarterback that they're comfortable with moving forward into the playoffs. They have, obviously, to your point, other wide receivers since Lockett they probably got cheap since nobody had any faith in Seattle. And then Jeff Wilson, they may have gotten off the waiver because somebody probably dropped him or they happened to hold on to him. Whatever. Jeff Wilson was not somebody that they invested a lot of value into or draft capital into. They're going after Eckler to solidify their team going to the playoffs. And I do agree that it's a tad overpaying, mostly in the Murray factor. But
I probably got him the trade.
Exactly. I would assume that they got this trade and it's totally fair. And this other team clearly needed a QB. And I mean, this is a good trade on both sides, especially for somebody going into the playoffs looking to bring their RB room into a little more solid. Go ahead.
Sorry. Couple things to point out for this. Austin Eckler was a top 10 draft pick in literally most 10 to 12 teams.
Right.
Team 2, trading away Austin Eckler, has other running backs that have come to the forefront for that to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
So got to be completely respectful of that. There's no keeper here. Everybody's in it until they're in it, or until they're not, I should say. So this is somebody who is in the mix of things and has Austin Eckler and says he's expendable. If you're trading away Tyler Lockett, like we talked about, you have expendable wide receivers. He's expendable. So you have wide receivers that have come to the forefront. The only exception out of either of those is on the wide receiver side, where I feel like you've been tapping into the streaming, the waiver wire on a weekly basis. I don't hate it if you plan on continuing to go there, but you have to, in that situation, you have to make sure your quarterback is steady. Justin Fields would be a perfect example. And that move for Austin Eckler has to make your running back room a 3-horse, not 2.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot fill in just 2. You have to have 3. So it's important to note if you're trading away one of any of the 3 positions to fill in, that you have excess at the other 2 in some capacity.
Yeah.
So don't give up more. Don't short sight you. Don't move your weakness from one position to another. Make sure you're fulfilling the one weak spot without deteriorating another part of your roster.
Yeah, and I think in the last trade I kind of undersold Lockett. He's always been boomer bust. It seems like I didn't quite realize this season how he's actually been decently consistent. His floor for the most part being like 11.5 points.
Derek did.
Yeah.
Derek owns him in our dynasty league.
I
He's
did see
averaging
that.
like 16 points per game for me or some dumb stuff.
Yeah, he's only had 2 bad games, so
he's like good for 6 to 10 targets a game, and he has a touchdown in like 6 or 7 games, I think.
Yeah, I count 5.
5, whatever.
4 games, one of which he had 2. Sorry.
Okay, that's probably rough.
Yeah.
Next up, our third trade. So we have records for this trade, which helps so much. This trade would have been from week 9, so it'd been 3 weeks ago, or week 10, I should say. The 6-3 team is trading Dak Prescott, Garrett Wilson, and Isaiah Likely. The 2-7 trade is trading 2-7 team is trading Jimmy Garoppolo and Deebo Samuel. So the first off, immediately, I like the improvement at wide receiver here. Deebo over Garrett Wilson. The production is a little more, the floor is higher. seeing where Jimmy G is. You also have to remember with this trade happening, what happened 3 weeks ago for the San Francisco 49ers. They picked up Christian McCaffrey. So the percentage of Jimmy G's passes and his completion percentage, his floor for that went up a little bit. This is probably the most even trade that we've seen so far. Isaiah likely doesn't have a high ceiling because of Mark Andrews. Garrett Wilson is the epitome of boomer bust at this point, specifically because Zach Wilson's in there. And are you going to get 100 yards? Are you going to get 15? You don't know. The 2-7 team is obviously struggling at I would say at the quarterback position, and is strong at the wide receiver position. The 6-3 team is comfortable taking on the weakness at wide receiver, boosting that, and fixing the quarterback position. I like the trade. This is the most even one that I can see. I feel like 6-3, unfortunately, probably won't make the playoffs with that though.
Yeah. Yeah. And the 6-3 team kind of going from Dak to Jimmy does not really help them going into the playoffs. Maybe the 2-7 team has Mark Andrews and they're trying to say, hey, when he was out, likely was awesome. So a little extra there. Yeah, if I'm the 6-3 team, giving away Dak to get Debo here means I'm really hurting at wide receiver. And Jimmy G is not terrible. He actually has a couple of decent games coming up schedule wise. Yeah, it's probably to your point, one of the more fair trades we've seen. But yeah, I don't think this does much for the 6-3 team really.
All in all, I agree. We're going to switch over to the dynasty side because we got about 8 minutes left. So we'll go over a couple dynasty trades. So we'll go over trade number 1 under this. Mike Evans and a 5th rounder of the dynasty was a 2023 5th rounder for AJ Brown. I don't think I'm giving away draft capital for the difference in these two wide receivers. If there's a salary difference, whether it's a fab or whether it's an annual, I might pay some of it depending on what it is. If AJ Brown's cheaper. If AJ Brown's more expensive, I feel like there's a little bit more of an even talk here. Mike Evans is still good for his targets. He can only be averaging 1 or 2 targets less than Brown. His receptions have to be right there. This is probably the first trade that not the first trade, that's a lie. This is another trade that I'm not a huge fan of just because of the draft capital. I know it's only a 5th round pick. In terms of our draft, we only do 6 rounds, so 5th round isn't huge. But giving away draft capital in any sense, especially out of a strong draft coming up, 2023, I don't like that so much to get AJ Brown. Whether you have, Tom Brady or not Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, doesn't make much of a difference to me. The one thing I will say that makes a little bit of sense here is that AJ Brown is locked in for 3 more years after this in Philly. And we don't know if Tom Brady's returning next year. I don't think that really lowers Mike Evans' floor a whole bunch, but it does give you more a solid wide receiver in AJ Brown. So that's my take on it.
Yeah. Trying to find, so at least in a half-point PPR, there's like a 26-point difference between them. And then, in targets. Yeah, it's like 20. No, not even. Sorry, I was looking at a different Brown. Okay, yeah, it's like a four more targets for AJ Brown. But that's looking at this year. I don't mind this. I mean, okay, I guess if I'm receiving AJ Brown, I like this. Only because Evans, 29 years old, Brown, probably like 23.
Somewhere in that range.
Yeah, and to your point, set up for he's 25 apparently. Brown is is set up for success for the next 3 years with Jalen Hurts and a pretty solid team. So I like receiving Brown here, but I don't know that I would give up Brown for this. So
That's fair.
yeah, so
He would for the draft capital. I don't know. Maybe team 2's in the middle of starting a rebuild. Who knows?
yeah, I would want a higher pick included with this if I'm giving up Brown.
That's fair. Longevity counts. All right, last trade we're going to talk about. This is the doozy I wanted to talk about. Listen to me read it first. Rashad Bateman, Raheem Mostert, Drake London, Romeo Dobbs, James Cook, Alec Pierce, a 2023 first and 2 2023 seconds
Jeez.
for Geno Smith, Cortland Sutton, DK Metcalf, and CD Lamb.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, team 1 must not have any quarterbacks to be going after Geno Smith. I mean, and that's not to say Geno Smith hasn't been solid this season, but
they
he's
sold
like
out
top
on
12.
so there's immediate contradiction right there, right? There is a 2023 first. You're going to have the choice of five quarterbacks. Likely
Yeah,
5 quarterbacks,
exactly.
maybe even 6. You're going to get one of them. And
Unless
in
you're
2
like,
years, you're going to regret taking Geno
right.
Smith over that. Wide receiver, huge boost immediately for CD Lamb and Cortland Sutton over Bateman, London, Dobbs, Pierce. The 2 seconds, easily you can find 2 wide receivers who are going to find slots at 2s next year. It's just a thing. Raheem Mostert's kind of a throw-in. Dobbs is kind of a throw-in at this point. James Cook is kind of a throw-in. A lot of youth going one way for a lot of immediate. Team 2, trading away Lamb, Metcalf, Sutton. 1 has either money issues with their team, whether it's fab or another way, they have money, or they're completely content with rebuilding.
Right.
The 4 wide receivers I see there at different points this year, or the 4 players I see there for team 2 at different points this year have had lulls. Geno Smith being probably the least lully of those. Sutton and Lamb, there's a 6-week period in there where both of them, they were not on the same. One would boom, the other would boom, but they never would both be up there.
Mm-hmm.
This seems like a huge rebuild for team 2, and they got a haul because in 3 years, team 1 is going to look at Cortland Sutton and DK Metcalf and go, oh no.
Yeah.
This is a steal for team 2, in my opinion. So much youth. You have so many different directions you can go with the 3 picks there. Drake London, you get a good quarterback in there at Atlanta. He can be Chris Olave
Mm-hmm.
in terms of production. Alec Pierce is going to do some amazing things in Indianapolis, even if it's not this year. Rashad Bateman is still going to be the one in Baltimore. James Cook has a future ahead of him. May not be the greatest. I don't understand this. I saw this one and I was literally like, whoa.
Yeah.
Like you traded away all of your future.
Yeah, no, that is a lot to give up. They better be going for they better be in a position to make a playoff run and have a solid chance at winning it this season. Yeah, giving up the 2023 stuff, that's gonna hurt because it is a solid draft class all around, not just quarterbacks. Yeah, if I'm doing this from a team 1 perspective, I like going after CD Lamb.
Mhm.
Metcalf, yeah, he needs a better quarterback to really explode. Sutton's where this really hurts, and Geno Smith not great, like future wise. I would want some other piece besides Sutton. Sutton's a good wide receiver, but even like I don't know. Yeah, he's got Russell Wilson. We want to see more out of that. But even last season, whenever he had that decent season, it wasn't like phenomenal. He doesn't have the upside that I would want if I'm throwing this haul at somebody.
Yeah, I 100%. And the Seahawks aren't amazing for the rest of the season, like we just talked about. They're middle of the road when it comes to difficulty and schedule. The Broncos' offense is not moving.
Right.
CD Lamb is the real piece for the rest of this year. So making
Exactly.
making a run for a championship lies in CD Lamb really here. Just an amazing trade. I'm glad we got to cover it. That's going to do it for the trade segment of this. We got about 45 seconds left. We're going to come back on Wednesday night. It'll be up late Wednesday night. We are going to go over the Week 12 results. We'll have our host v. host results as well. Next Saturday's show is the second edition of the super epic bit of fun side games because you and me face off in week 13.
Hot
So
damn.
we're back at it. Taylor, any last words, or should I play Bob Barker?
Play us out.
Play us some Bob Barker.
Bob Barker reminding you, help
Peace out,
control
y'all.
the pet
Take care,
population.
everybody.
Have your pet spayed or neutered. Goodbye, everybody.